Ms. Dean.
Thank you, Chairman Adderholt, Ranking Member DeLauro, for holding this hearing, and I thank you, Secretary McMahon, for being here today. I want to start with the role of the Department of Education. I come at this as a mother, as a grandmother, a former teacher myself, a former state legislator with two grandmothers who were public school teachers. I have a lot of experience with the education system in Pennsylvania as well as the country. First, the history of the federal education involvement, and Ms. Watson-Coleman was getting at some of this that I'd like to build upon. Federal investments in education began to increase dramatically in the 50s and 60s and 70s, in tandem with the rise of the success of the civil rights movement. Americans finally began to recognize the vast inequalities in our education system. Thus, federal funding was used to improve education access for students from poor backgrounds, or minority students, for women, for people with disabilities, and other marginalized groups. Finally, Congress established the Department of Education in 1979, replacing the Office of Education. Secretary McMahon, it's alarming that you and the President want to turn that clock back. You take us back to a time before any federal oversight of education, before many of the programs that guarantee free and equal access to education for all Americans. You said as much in your testimony. After all the Department of Education's work to ensure equal access to education, you're embarking on the department's final mission? You intend to put yourself out of a job? That's a little jarring to me. If you were a pediatric oncologist, I'd welcome that. Let's get you out of a job through cures, through healing, through ending of pediatric cancer. But ending a department that is supposed to oversee the education of our very youngest, to guide their future? Have you taken the time to educate yourself about this history? I'd encourage you, go ask students who attended school back then. Black students, brown students, students with disabilities, students from poor families. What was access like for them before the Department of Education? Frankly, eliminating the Department of Education, to me, is rather Orwellian. The President and his administration don't want an educated populace. Why don't we just go back to the book 1984 if it hasn't been banned? It's clear to me, this administration wants an uneducated electorate so that Mr. Trump and his courtiers can control thought, therefore control votes, and control the population. I'll note a secondary measure here that is going on. The increase in funding for charter schools. We know that charter schools originally were supposed to be incubators of the best ideas, great practices to be brought back into the public school education system so that every kid had an access to such things. But this administration and you, who want to put yourself out of a job, following the playbook, page 319 of Project 2025, first sentence, shutter the Department of Education. You're all following the book, that book. Too bad that one wasn't banned. And yet, privatizing is really the other ambition, an uneducated electorate and profit and privatization of our education system. Do you promise us that that isn't your ambition?
That clearly is not my ambition. I think I've stated that very well today.
Then why in God's name do you want to shutter it? Why don't you want to protect kids with disabilities? Why don't you want to protect kids who have been every decade denied equal access simply because of how much their parents make, the zip code they live in, the color of their skin? Why are you shuttering a department that's supposed to lift up those children?
Because those programs don't have to flow through the Department of Education, and they
can flow through the state. I was a state legislator. That's called shift and shaft. I've spoken with the governor of Pennsylvania. They can't pick up the tab anymore for education of our students. Not to mention, it would be inequitable by state, by state, by state. Why are you in this job at all? If you don't have a dedication to the future of our children, why are you in this job?
I, too, am a mother and a grandmother, and I want the best for my family going forward.
Vouchers.
For my grandchildren, for my great-grandchildren, and I hope to leave a legacy that we have established best practices for education that all the states can use. That would be a great legacy to be able to leave, to be able to show states these are some of the things that they can do. I think states have to look at their budgets.
Madam Secretary, the legacy you will be leaving is that I shut down the Department of Education. How we educate our children determines not just their future, but our own.
But the
I think it's a
department-
sad legacy you will leave. I yield back.
The Department of Education is not educating anyone. Well, I can say this, and I will. May I
Thank you,
just-
Madam Secretary. No, I think it's my question time, if I can.
I thought I had a few
They'll
more
start the
seconds.
clock. I just don't want to lose my clock.
Oh,
And if we could do short-term answers rather than long-term ones too, that'd be helpful, just because I got a lot I'd like to talk about. Let's talk about
some
waste,
need
fraud, and abuse a
explanation.
little more, about Doge. So you fired 1,300 people, another 600 people took Elon Musk's deferred resignation offer. Did you fire the people, or did Doge fire the people? I'm not completely clear on that.
Most, excuse me, most of that restructuring happened under the acting.
Short-term, did you fire, or did Doge fire?
Well, I'm going to tell you who I fired.
I know, but that's why I'm trying to get short-term
So
questions.
the
It's
short
one or
term
the
answer-
other,
well,
right?
You're using our time.
Yeah.
So most of that was done before I came on board. However, the
Doge-
decisions in the department I run the department. Doge does not run the
Okay,
department.
so you didn't answer the question. Did you fire them, or did Doge? It's real simple.
A good majority of that happened before I came on board.
Okay, and by a good majority, 2/3, 3/4?
But yes, I'd say.
Okay, fair, okay. And how many times did you meet with Elon Musk
I've
about
met
firing?
with Mr. Musk probably 3 to 4 times now,
Okay,
not including when I was on the transition committee and had several opportunities to speak with him.
sure. And then if I understand it right, on your Department of Education employee roster, you have right now at least is about 16 Doge employees, is that correct right now, working with you?
I can get back to you to the exact number. I don't think it's that high, but we
Okay.
do have, they are employees. Those that we have are employees of the federal
And when you did their background checks to see how they're qualified about education, how many had undergraduate degrees and how many had graduate degrees in
I
education?
can get back to you on that.
Okay, so you don't know offhand?
No,
Did you ask that question?
no.
No, okay. Did you ask if any of them were teachers previously?
I did not interview those people that are part of the
Okay.
Doge group.
And did you ask if any of them worked in schools? Did you know if they were
Actually, I had a
asked?
conversation with one of them yesterday who did have a background in education, technology education, and had worked across several different aspects and was really schooling me a little bit on some of the AI things that we could bring in.
So one of them had a good background, good. Any of them work in universities that you know of prior?
I don't know.
Okay. Fair enough. So part of my concern is, I know yesterday there was this big splash, Elon Musk is stepping back. We call that horse hockey where I come from, right? We know it's not real. He's in the back closet. I understand you guys don't want his, front and center, but he's still in the room. And he's still making a lot of these decisions. And that's the real problem that I have is, you've got a bunch of folks that he brought in that you've admitted you didn't hire, you don't know their backgrounds if they have anything in education, yet they're helping you fire half of your employees right now. And I'm really concerned about that. Do you know if any of them have requested or gained access to any sensitive data held by the department, including student loan borrower data?
Well, as government employees now, they have been vetted through the same process than any other government employee would. And so what access would be granted to other government employees, they
Okay,
have.
that's fine. And then, do you know the number of people that you've had to reinstate of those fired?
It's about 74.
About 74. So how did that happen? Because, I've been an employer for 37 years. The dumbest thing I could possibly do is fire someone just to rehire them, right? Because you've given them no job security. It's like beyond stupid, right? Not saying that because you didn't do it. Clearly, it sounds like this is from Elon Musk. But how did that happen that people got fired and no one thought of you might need them in your department?
Some of that did happen when I returned.
Okay.
Now, I was in the private sector. I have done restructuring in firms, and it's painful to do that.
Yeah. But
And
fire people
wait,
to
no,
rehire them?
well, here's the thing.
Like usually that's not a strategy.
When you are restructuring a company, you hope that you're just cutting fat. Sometimes you cut a little in the muscle, and you realize it as you're continuing with your programs, and you can bring people back to do that.
Yeah,
So
or
that's
you
what
can
we
plan
did.
ahead and not fire people to rehire them, right? That would be another strategy that I think is more often used. Would you agree?
Well, I'm saying that I have been on both sides of that coin, and I found them both to be effective.
Okay, interesting. We have a different perspective on that, but maybe the world of all-star wrestling is different than my world of business to business. You talked about, and I agree with you, about contracts enriching private contractors at public expense. Does Elon Musk have any contracts with the Department of Education?
First of all, I just
It's a simple question, please. This is my time. I have 38 seconds, please,
Well,
Madam
I don't know
Secretary.
if he does or not.
You don't know if Elon Musk has any contracts in your department, and you've met with him multiple times?
Elon Musk doesn't have contracts in my department.
So Department of Education, there are no contracts with any Elon Musk company. That's what I'm asking.
Not to my knowledge.
Okay. All right. You want to check a blue card real quick, or are you pretty sure of that?
I said not to my knowledge.
Okay.
If I find out differently, I'll be happy to get back to you.
All right. And just in the last few seconds I have, just real quick on private schools getting public dollars, just so you know, something like 3/4 of the students that wind up going into those schools already attend those schools, and they're getting tax money. So if we get rid of the Department of Education, should we put the private voucher program under Ways and Means, because it's really more of a tax benefit than an education benefit?
Well, I'm happy to get back to you on that as to how we restructure the Department of Education going forward and how those programs are handled.
Great. Appreciate it. Thank you, Madam Secretary.
You're welcome.